welcome to the replay. So happy to have you here for this broadcast, which I'm very excited to be having. And it's about a book that it's about a book, but it's actually about the author too. The author behind the book, because, we need those. We need the authors so the books can exist. Uh, yeah, keeping it light and fun and playful. So as you can see, I like to go by my nickname of Beau, and I am a transformational guide in a channel, and I help people create clarity around their biggest life questions. And I mean, like, the biggest, like whatever's going on, relationship, career, struggling struggling with being yourself, like being afraid to be yourself, all of that stuff, the biggest stuff that people kind of get all, you know, crunched up on inside of themselves. I help people kind of like create space around that and let go and find their own clarity. So it's my joy and pleasure and privilege to be able to do that. So that's a bit about how I help people, again, the biggest questions in their lives. And then I also today have Ramona here with me, Ramona Galey, and I've actually interviewed Ramona before on a podcast that I have, and then I had a couple pre-chats before that interview. So I've got to know her quite a bit. I've actually taken in a lot of her materials, like hours and hours of her channeled works. And so when I heard that she had put out a book, I was like, that's cool, because I also know a bit of her story. And so my highest excitement was like, let me see if she wants to come on live, like tell me, because I'm curious too. Hi, Nancy. Thank you for joining us live. Uh, yeah, I wanted to hear about the book. I wanted to hear like a bit about the journey with the book, and yeah, why she decided to write it. So that's why I have Ramona here with me today. Welcome, Ramona, and yeah, feel free to introduce yourself however you like in your own words.
Thank you, Bo. I'm so glad to be here with you. And I'm so glad to be doing all this new technology, Restream and Facebook Live and all that stuff. It's so much fun. And yeah, so I do pretty much everything that you just said that you do. We're in very similar tracks, very
Mm,
similar spirits, kindred spirits from the moment we met,
yep.
just full of joyfulness and love and appreciation for each other. And I just have so much respect for everything you're doing. And as I was joking before we started, I was telling Bo that I now introduce myself as I sell speed, and of course we had a good laugh over that. And it's funny, it's a great joke and everything, but it's also true. When I look back on my journey, which started with my partner passing away and me being absolutely committed to taking my own life, and then discovering Abraham Hicks, and you can hear all about that lots of different places on my website and different places. But I had a journey, and I knew my life depended on it, and I committed myself to it, and I threw myself into it 24/7. It was like pretty much my full-time job. I was working part-time from home for an employer, and I was in a place where we had just only recently moved, so I didn't know many people. And so I spent, I'm going to say, almost 5 years of a real, like, super immersion. I got like a doctorate in law of attraction and spiritual expansion and how to feel better, how to be more myself, all those really great things you were talking about that you help people with. I didn't have anybody to help me other than Abraham Hicks, long distance. So I went to a lot of their workshops. I went on their cruises, and I studied and I studied and I studied and I thought and I thought and I thought and I talked and I talked and I talked and I practiced and I practiced. Way more than most people get a chance to do. Most people are raising kids, or they've got kids in college, or they've got a corporate career, or they're taking care of their parents. I mean, all the things that I haven't raised kids, but I've taken care of parents. I've taken care of sick partners. I've been there. I've been on the rat race, and I don't even know how people learn this stuff on there, because I was just really blessed. I just really took the space. And so it took almost 5 years for me to get through this I'm going to call it the vibrational snob era. I'm just going to name that. Okay. So we start off and we find out about how this could actually be going better, right? From wherever we come from, and we start doing stuff, we start learning stuff, we start meditating a little bit, we start or maybe we stop, listening to the news. We start doing things to take better care of ourselves, and we have this incredible result, and things are going so much better. And then I like to call it the other shoe drops. At some point, we start realizing there's this whole other level. And that's kind of the part that I'm talking about that could be sped up so much, from 4 years down to 4 months, or for some people even 4 weeks. So that's why I say I sell speed. I sell speed to people who are on this awakening, this enlightenment, this expansion, this raising of the vibration. And if you're to that point where you're kind of frustrated, you're impatient at how long it's taking, you feel like maybe you're backsliding, there's all kinds of things that can happen. But that's where I have this alignment circle group that it's a mastermind, and people just get tremendous results. So that's basically what I do for a living. And now I'm an author. There's my book. Woo! I'm holding it down a little bit because the camera won't necessarily. If I put it here, it'll make it disappear. See. So anyway, that's the book. And I'm happy to answer whatever questions you've got, Beau. Let's get to it.
Yeah, well, thank you for, yeah, speaking to what you do in your own words. And yes, we pretty much offer the same thing, just in our own, with our own kind of like varying life experiences.
Absolutely.
And I like how you put it once, is that because a lot of people sometimes ask, like how it works between two channels. And I actually heard you once say, I believe on Rhonda Ryder's podcast, that it's like it's always specific to the moment, based on who's summoning, like where they're coming from, the question they have, and the information can be kind of like the perspectives that can be shed on the summoning or the questioning each time just can be different, because every time we ask a question, we're kind of in a different place. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just loved hearing you say that. So it's like, yeah, it was just a cool thing. I wanted to reflect about what it is that we both do. And yeah, so I had no idea that you were working on a book. And so when I saw that you had announced one, I was like, oh, and I was really taken aback by the cover, because like the artwork on the cover is really beautiful. And then of course the messaging, and I like how you have tied in your story into it. And so I guess first and foremost, I'm just kind of curious, yeah, when did you get the inspiration for this? And yeah, what was it like when you just decided to say, yes, I'm gonna like follow and like really bring this to the world?
Yeah. So I had been living a lot of contrast last year, and then I received a gift of a free trip to a photo safari to South Africa with a friend of mine. He was really just kind of an acquaintance at the time. We're good friends now. And so I went, and I remember saying before I went multiple times, I was like really setting this intention, or feeling the truth of it, however you want to say it, that when I came back, I was going to be kind of off grid for basically 4 weeks, and which was long enough to really let everything just, let all the dust settle, let all the silt settle, however you want to describe that. And so I said, when I come back, I'm going to be coming back to a blank slate. And I'm just going to pick up the things that serve me. I'm going to leave everything else alone. So I'm going to save myself the trouble of releasing this and releasing that. I'm just going to not pick it back up again. And so what happened was I came back to a blank slate, and I only picked up that which served me. And there wasn't that much from my like day-to-day life that served me. So there was it was like a vacuum. Within that vacuum, this book flowed. It just flowed. It just suddenly was there, and it was there in its entirety in my mind. And so all I had to do was sit down and start typing, and it flowed, and it flowed, and it flowed. And I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. I was actually living with a friend of mine at the time, and I didn't even tell her the first probably 18 hours or so. I just was holed up in my room, and I just typed, and I typed, and I typed, and I typed, and I typed. And then eventually I did tell her, and I would come out like every day and just go, this is like, I mean, I thought it was going to be, 50 pages or 25 pages or something. And it kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And anyway, it all came out in about 7 or 8 days, really 4 days for the majority of it. And then there was another couple of days of kind of massive rewriting, and then another couple of weeks of kind of editing. and there it was in its entirety. It was, and it turned out to be, I think it's 174 pages officially. And that's, I don't know, that's how it happened. I don't know how it happened. That's how it happened. So it was a labor of love. It was an amazing thing. I had always wanted to write a book. I'd almost written a book a couple of times earlier in my life, and I just didn't feel ready somehow. I didn't feel up to it. And this was just so easy. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, that's where it came from.
That's so cool. Yeah, it just sounds like a lot of inspired movement. Actually reminds me of kind of reminds me of how Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of now, where like there was just this stream of energy that wanted to move through, and like
Mhm.
it was like there or it wasn't, but when it was there, it was there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so yeah, it just sounds like you just like this wants to move through, and so you just kind of like participated, allowed it to move through. I would imagine from like your higher self or your inner being, and so that's really cool. Yeah, just letting it be easy is what I'm picking up. Like you let it be easy and just flow, and it doesn't sound like you put a lot of pressure on yourself. Is kind of what I'm picking up.
No, none at all. None at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your? I mean, the title says a lot, and there's great detail in the description. How would you put your intention and maybe like your hope for it um, being in the world? Like, do you have like an intention for how you see it
I
being of
absolutely
service?
do. Yeah, thanks for asking. So, I really see this as a way for people to move from wherever they are. I used the word lonely. I thought about it a lot. I mean, where everybody wants to be is fearless. I believe that, and people might call that loving. They might call it, present. They might, but to me, the authenticity that we all crave requires fearlessness, and in so many different ways. And so I knew where I wanted to help people get to, but where did I want to call where they were starting? And I chose lonely after looking at a lot of different concepts. And I think it's a lot like, how they say, like if you're on a diet or something, and then like they're speaking about a nutrition regimen, and somebody will say, well, okay, sometimes I think I'm hungry, but it turns out I'm really thirsty. Or sometimes I think I'm hungry and I'm really tired. Or sometimes I think I'm, hungry and I'm this or I'm that, I'm bored, or I'm anxious or whatever it is. So to me, lonely is kind of a placeholder that we will frequently say, I feel lonely. But what I might mean is I feel like a freak. I've got this higher vibration going on now that I never had before, and I don't fit with any of my friends anymore, and I don't even fit with my family completely yet. And of course I love them, I care about them, but I just can't interact with them the way I used to. And so I'm going to call that lonely. Or I am feeling so at sea within myself because sometimes I'm at this really high vibration, but I don't know how to maintain it. And when I go back down again, I feel like the world is crushing me. Like I feel like I'm backsliding. I feel, I know that I feel better than I used to, but I still feel worse than I want to. And so what am I going to call that? Let's call that lonely for now. And so that's kind of the idea and the intention behind the title. And then that of course informed the entire book. Is, if you tell somebody you're lonely, society will say, well, just go, join a couple of clubs, or just make a phone call, and that's not it. And so in the very first part of the book, I address all of those myths that are very, very common in our society about the idea of loneliness. And then I introduce some of the things that it actually can be instead. And I kind of bust the myths of how to get out of loneliness, and I give some completely different alternatives in the physical plane. And then I also move to the non-physical, the unconditional. And so it's a journey. It's a journey from wherever you might be. If it's not where you want to be, how to get to that fearlessness, that part that says, I am a child of God. I am a piece of all that is. I am right here, right now, and I'm perfect just the way I am. I'm here, and that proves that I deserve to be here. Like the worthiness quotient, the authenticity quotient, the I am. I love the fireworks. That was great. I don't
I
know how
didn't
to
know
do
that was
that, but that was
coming.
pretty cool.
I want to let you pick up in a second, but I didn't even know that was coming because it happens on Zoom now if I go like this. But I thought it was
Oh, okay.
literally just a Zoom thing, and now
Okay.
apparently it people have said it's a thing with Mac computers, when you do certain, like, hand gestures, and
Uh-huh.
so,
Well, I don't care how
so
you did it. I just love that you did it.
yeah, but yeah, you were saying, yeah, pick up where, where you were.
Yeah, no, that's basically what I'm saying. Like I wanted to get them from wherever they are, wherever you are, come to where I am and where you want to be, which is authentic, standing in place, feeling completely worthy and able to take on the world. You can call that self-confident, you can call it, you know, fearless, you can call it just healthy, just happy. Just happy. Just come get happy. That's the whole point.
Love that, love that, and, I did wanna say real quick, if you're watching live, if you have any comments, just know that they're welcome. Like, if you have questions for Ramona, I mean, just we're happy to consider them as you're watching, or if you just have, like, an aha you wanna share. I do love, comments, especially live. I love live interaction, just know that's an option. You're welcome here, and you're welcome to interact. I like interacting with you, if you feel so inclined. Just wanna mention that, and then I'm just curious, what would you say would be what was, like, one of the main things you learned in your journey from that place of feeling lonely into being your fearless self? Like, is there anything, like, overarching theme that kinda stands out that you learned along the way?
Yeah, I've learned that not only I, but every single human on the planet, I believe this with all of my heart, and I didn't used to. So, I have definitely learned this, that we are all part of God and we are all pure love, that our desires are pure love. And so all of the baloney that we're taught about, be careful, you're not good enough, you have to, do this before you can do that. Any of those limitations that we're taught, they're just not true. That you can trust yourself, you can trust your inner being, you can trust your guidance and do good in the world, be good in the world. And we're all worthy. We are all worthy beyond belief, beyond our wildest imaginations, beyond anybody's ability to put into words, I believe. Like that's how worthy we are. And that's my message for anybody who asks. So thanks for asking. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that leads me yeah, my questions just always come up in the moment as I'm listening. So now I'm curious, what have you found about your life? Maybe some of the main differences you've seen. Because, as we know in these conversations, whether you want to call it spirituality or metaphysics, the emphasis is on everything starts within, which, I totally agree with. That's where it all begins because our reality is a mirror, essentially, just mirroring all kinds of things back to us that are going on inside. And it's still fun to watch how, like, the outer reality, the mirror, can and will and does shift. So, um, I'm just curious, what are some of the main things you've noticed just of you as you've allowed yourself to settle more in that place of realizing your inherent worthiness, like coming back to like, oh, of course I'm worthy because I exist. Like any fun or main themes about your life that you've seen since you've really allowed yourself back into that place?
Yeah. So I I could answer that so many different ways. So I want to talk about a little bit about the fearlessness versus or like how fearlessness includes all of authenticity. Because I think that's what we're the most afraid of. We're afraid of being ourselves. We're afraid of finding out there's something wrong with us. And so if we can avoid being ourselves, we can avoid that knowledge. I think that's really our deepest fear. And gosh, I think Nelson Mandela, or somebody said, our greatest fear is not what we can't do, it's what we can do. I mean, I'm totally paraphrasing it, but I really do believe that that's our biggest fear is finding out how powerful we are because we're afraid to lose the people around us. Afraid to lose their respect. We're afraid to lose their love, their companionship. Because we know deep down inside as humans, we need other humans. And when the humans are all asking us to play it small, it's really tough. It's really tough to break out of that. It takes a lot of support, a lot of encouragement, a lot of connection to self. a lot of connection to, I've been saying the word God just during this conversation, which is interesting because I almost always call it source, but for some reason God's coming out. So source, God, infinite intelligence, inner being, mother nature, universal, infinite, whatever you want to call it. That connection is the vast majority of who we actually are. And so when we reject that, we reject ourselves. And as we accept that and love that and trust that and connect to that, we love and accept and connect to ourselves. And so to me, that's the bottom line for all of it, is to be authentic, to start trusting ourselves, what we actually want, and to understand the divinity of that desire. I mean, literally, as Abraham has been teaching for 40 years, and now Oprah teaches that the expansion, in other words, I as a human, when I want something different, that desire goes out into the universe and expands it. And that desire expands me. And your desires all expand you and the universe. And everybody's desires expand them and the universe. And so it's kind of like our job. It's kind of like our job to want stuff, to want things, to want beingness, to want feelings, to want thoughts, to want ideas, to want people, to want things. And so as we want human connection. And there's the rub, because if we're afraid we're going to lose the human connection by being more true to ourselves, that's a tough decision to make. And it really takes a lot of support and encouragement and momentum, consistency. So yeah, that's my answer.
Mhm. Yeah. So to me, it feels like a lot of what you found along the way, on your path, and that hit me like so deep. That what you said about the fear about like losing people, and maybe people that we've considered important for a long time. Not to say they're not still important, but it's just like, again, it really is finding that place where it's like, well, ultimately my opportunity is to take really good care of me, and like to be
Mhm.
discerning about like what I'm continuing to keep close to me, type thing. And yeah, I mean, and you spoke to like some, I feel like some core fears of humanity, because we've always been in, as far as we know, we've been in social groups and in you know um, tribes, and and things like that. So to
Mhm.
get to a place where it's like, like, oh, like, there's some things that don't work for me, and I'm realizing how important it is to take care of myself. Yeah, that is like the huge, I found it in my journey too. It's like it really does come down to like how important is it to me to allow me to be myself. And if there's people around that just like are can't get on board with that, like, yeah, that is like, I feel that's like one that a lot of people kind of have apprehension about. And it does happen, sometimes it does come to that crossroads. I mean, I found that, sounds like you have. So um, yeah, so as you've really embraced that more for yourself, allowed yourself to be yourself, kind of having to maybe make certain decisions along the way, how do you feel now that you're like so committed to that, like just fully, being your fearless self, and just like, I'm gonna be me. That's what I'm here to do. I'm gonna be here to me. Like, what do you feel different now that you're more in this place?
Frankly, it feels like relief. It really does. It
Amazing.
feels like, wait a minute, when I'm just purely, not just, not as in merely, but as in purely being myself, I don't have to I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to wonder, how what to say or how to be or where to go or what to do. I don't have to wonder about what anybody else is thinking, about me or about anything else. I don't have to wonder what anybody else is doing, like, how to follow the crowd. It is a truly fearless stance that says, I love everyone and I need no one, from that pure unconditional love where I don't need you to do or be or change or say or think or act or anything, you or anybody else, like including the government, including, corporations, including, my next door neighbor, or including my spouse, or including anything else. Like, I don't need for anyone to do or be or say anything different from whatever it is. And so from that stance, I can love everyone exactly the way they are, starting with me. It's a relief. It is a light, giddy, ethereal, effervescent feeling. It is so good. That's an
Do you
interesting
see the
question.
comment as well?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, she
Okay.
addressed you, so yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Nancy just asked Ramona, do you feel disloyal when you knew some of your friends were toxic? So I'm going to assume that you mean that you knew they were toxic before you had your awakening and then you needed to move on from them, and did that feel disloyal to you because their toxicity wasn't changing? I'm assuming that's kind of what you mean. So been there. I hear you. I feel you. And I think for me, the most helpful thing is to release the idea of anybody being toxic, to just say, in any given moment, I'm doing my best to be in alignment. And that means I'm loving, and I'm caring about people. And yet, as I am moving through my life, I'm making decisions on what's best for me, what feels the best for me. And I'm trusting and encouraging others to do the same. And I can't control their choices, so, but I wouldn't, I would remove that I would reframe that idea of toxic and just say out of alignment. I'm out of alignment sometimes. I try my best very quickly to get back into alignment. When somebody else is out of alignment and they don't know how to get back into alignment, then they just don't know how. And if they ask for my help, then I'll help them. And if they don't ask for my help, then I won't try to help them. And I feel like I can help the best by serving as a role model. This is how happy anyone can be. Come join me. It's fun. It's kind of like, come on in, the water's fine, right? That old saying. So, yeah, come on in, the water's fine. And I will show the way for anyone who's interested in following or joining me, or even trying. And if that's not your jam, more power to you. But I'm not going to stick around if it doesn't feel good. I only stick around anywhere, anything that feels good. That's kind of like my rule. Like, I don't do politics, I only do feels good. It's like, it can all be very lighthearted. It doesn't ever have to be any kind of rejection or conflict. It can be just really easy. It's really easy once you get the hang of it. It takes a little practice, but yeah. I hope that answered your question. Yes, even family. Yeah. If I had a family member who was really, really out of alignment and I was in their presence, I would probably remove myself from their presence eventually. I mean, there's a certain amount of out of alignment I can take just being around it. I don't even notice it at first. But if I'm noticing it, then it's starting to bring me down. I need to get back into alignment. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get into alignment. I love every single friend, every single member of my family. It's got nothing to do with not loving them. It's just got to do with being the best that I can be, so that I can serve as a role model, I can lead, and do I can fulfill my purpose, because my purpose is very important to me. My purpose is to love. If I'm all caught up in some conflict, it's really tough to love. Got to get back to love, back to love, back to love.
That's so good, so good. Thank you for bringing those forth, Nancy. Yeah, real life stuff, and yeah, I mean, this is what I feel like so many people are wondering about, right? People are in these real life situations and they're wanting to navigate them, and sometimes it
Absolutely.
can feel confusing. And so, um, I feel like ultimately a lot of us who, have even a slight bit of awareness, like we do want to be coming from our heart. Um, and it still can feel complicated at times. So I'm thankful that people like you that have had the journey that you've had, are willing to write about it, willing to share your experience. Because the way I look at it is just, like as people find the courage to be themselves and kind of like face situations that can feel complicated, it's like you gain life wisdom through that, right? And now
Right.
you have perspectives you can share, and it may not always be the best fit for everybody, but it may be a perspective that they haven't heard before. It may
Right.
shed some light on their situation, and it may also inspire them to see someone that's like, yeah, it wasn't always easy, but I did find my way, and I have found what feels better and best to me. So yeah, so thank you again for all that to say, just sharing gratitude for you being willing to share your life experience so openly, because I know that's what your work is about in a big way. But then also like this book, I mean, a book's kind of a big deal to like offer something like this to the world. So just
Yeah.
thanking you for sharing so openly.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to do it. It's part of my authenticity and my willingness to be seen, which was a really big deal for me when I was younger. It was really tough for me to be seen.
Mm.
And the few people that I let see me then became, almost larger than life. And that's the way I felt about my partner, which is why I felt like there was no sense staying once she was gone. And so to move from that place to where I am now is it's a true trek from lonely with a big L all the way to fearless. And I just want to add one more thing for Nancy. She's saying that was affirming. I appreciate you. I do feel my ability to be near others will increase as I get acclimated. Yeah, absolutely. Just don't require that of yourself. Don't require yourself to stay in a situation. If you feel it dragging you down, just give yourself permission to. I mean, you can just check out kind of emotionally. You don't have to leave physically, but give yourself permission to be you, to be the highest version of you, and also just really be assured that other people who are not on this path, who are not mindful or aware, whatever you want to call it, people who have not chosen this type of expansion path are not really paying as much attention as the rest of us are. And so what will happen is as you stay focused on your alignment, if they're close to you at all, vibrationally I'm speaking, if they can manage it at all, they will rise to meet you without even knowing that it's happened. Frequently you will find but you don't do it for that reason. You don't try to change them. You don't try to get that outcome. You don't attach to that outcome. But I've seen this happen in my own life as well as many clients. All of a sudden, the husband is easier to get along with. All of a sudden, the kids are doing their homework without being asked to. All of a sudden, there's things change and without anybody really talking about it a lot. And it's because one person manages to hold their vibration high and serve as the role model. It's a vibrational role model as much as any kind of human behavior role model that you could imagine. So it's very powerful.
Mm. Yeah, just hearing you speak about that with real life evidence of yeah, the power of vibration and really what I'm kind of getting is like what's our commitment to doing our best to stay there. Just so Nancy said, this all backs up. Um, I know Nancy does automatic writing every morning, I believe, and so I feel like that's what she's saying that
Nice.
lines up with her. I would imagine her automatic writing this
Great.
morning. So
I love it when I
um,
get confirmation on something that I'm starting to understand. Yeah, it's really great. Really
yeah,
beautiful.
um, channeling. Oh, okay. So it was yeah. Sounds like you did channeling for yourself. So cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. And yeah, I just love that you're sharing, or I guess what I'm hearing is just if we do decide to just make that level of commitment to like, I'm just going to do my best to maintain my vibration where I'm coming from, just watching how, yeah, just watching how things can shift. Cause it's like, that's that whole thing where, there's more than two options, but the ones that are coming to me right now is like, how committed are we to like staying in that place within ourselves that feels good, and then like
Hmm.
another option being like entangling, getting involved, and then now you have like all of this who knows what elements going back and forth because
Right.
we've kind of like brought ourselves down to entangle and get enmeshed, and like no judgment, but it's just like you know even by the way we talk about them you can tell they're just different experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have a strong momentum of entanglement, be very gentle with yourself. As you start to disentangle, all help can break loose. Stay the course. It can be very tough to do on your own, but you can do it. Many of us have. And if you want help, get help. But either way, be very gentle with yourself because a long-standing momentum of entanglement, like you're describing, yeah, disentangling is one step, one step. One step. It's not, you don't bite it off all at once and just chew it up and spit it out. It's a process.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because again, real life, I mean, these are things that people are really dealing with. So it does help to hear from people who have navigated, similar things in their own way and that now have some, some life experience to bring to the table on it. And thank you again, Nancy, for asking your questions, because again, I know that's why people like Ramona and I have chosen to do what we do, because it's like we know that there's people out there that are asking these questions. you know?
Well, I was asking the same questions just not that long ago. So yeah, I remember all those questions. I love those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So about the experience of reading the book, that just kind of rose up for me. So would you say is it mostly your story? Is it you just kind of telling different aspects of your story?
It is a combination, I would say, two major portions of the book, and it goes back and forth between the two. One is pure instruction, ideas, information, exercises, practices, possibilities, options, suggestions, real practical, real world things that you can do right now to start feeling better. And intertwined with all of that, in between all of that, is a lot of story about what we would call case studies of various clients. Sometimes it's somebody that I've changed the names on all of them just to protect confidentiality and whatnot. But sometimes it's an individual client. Sometimes it's a combination of two different clients and how it all worked out. And there's a fair amount of case studies based on me that I say, I just say, this is me. This is what happened to me. This is how this principle demonstrated itself in my life. And this is what I did about it. And this was the outcome. So there's a lot of me in it. And a lot of, I don't know, I can't remember how many case studies in there, but probably maybe 20. I don't know, a lot of stories. So if there's no fluff in it, it just goes back and forth between the principle, and then here's an example of that principle in action, and then here's the next principle, and like that. So it's chock full of really great information for a thin book. When I first opened the package, and I thought, oh, it's thinner than I was expecting, because it feels big to me. But I'm kind of glad, because it makes it a little bit lighter, easier to start a thin book, thinking, well, this won't take me that long. But there is a lot of information in there. So I don't know exactly how long it would take. I haven't gotten a read from anybody, or how long did this take to read. But if you stop and do all the exercises, it would take quite a while. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then if you want to, feel free to hold it up again. And then Nancy
Oh,
was
sure.
asking for the name of it. So
Yeah.
um,
From lonely to fearless. From lonely to fearless.
yeah.
And then the what do you call that second part of the title? A guide to conquering loneliness, boosting self-esteem, and letting go of others' opinions. That last part, that's the kicker. It's the whole secret. It's that's a spoiler alert. Screw what anybody else thinks. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where so many people, I feel, again, from my own experience, like that's where it's so easy to get caught up and hold ourselves back. And yeah, just hide parts of ourselves, and
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean that, oh my gosh, that's just like, I'm sure most human beings who grew up in a Western culture will be able to relate in some
Absolutely, I think
way.
so. I mean, it's astonishing how much that is taught to us in an attempt to control us. You have to do what I think, not what you think. What you think isn't safe. What you think isn't good. What you think isn't trustworthy. Do what I think. And it's ludicrous when you really think about it logically, but it is very pervasive in our society. But how to let go of what other people think? That's the thing. How? I know I should do that, but how? Well, buy my book. I'll tell you how. That was a shameless plug.
Yeah, again, it's that lived wisdom, which again just may, because it's been lived, because the outcomes have been seen in a lot of ways. Again, it just may highlight perspectives that other people just weren't aware of before. Like, and then again, it's inspiring to see that someone else has navigated these things and they've had good results, good enough to write about them, and share it with the world. So that says a lot right there. Oh, thank you for being with us, Nancy. I really appreciate that, and for
Yeah,
all
thank
your
you.
interaction. It's been really, I'm sure your interaction will be really valuable for anyone else who watches this down the line. So thank you again for your participation. Much love. um, but yeah, I was just saying, to first live it, and see it for yourself, but then write about it and share it with the whole world, anyone who's interested. It says a lot that you're like, yeah, I feel good enough about what I've experienced that I can just share it with anybody who wants to read about it.
It is. It is a little bit like that. It's a little bit of a naked feeling, a little
Hmm.
vulnerable, visible. And yeah, I'm so glad that I was able to do it. And I would just be thrilled if it actually helps people. So I
Yeah.
hope it does. And that's absolutely my goal, is to help others navigate this very strange culture we find ourselves in.
Well, I'm laughing because I can relate, and trust me, there's so many things. Yeah, just I'll bring the. I wanted to ask a couple other clarifying things real quick, but I will just mention this because of what you just said. Like, I've actually been, based on what you just said, I've been being drawn, like, intuitively, like, by my guidance to start watching like films and series that I haven't really like watched in a long time because they have more like drama in them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And at first, because usually I like to stick to like really like happy, like happy, fun, more like kids and animated stuff. That's just
Yes.
been what I've been into for a while. But then it was like these presentations were like like this, and it's going back into the drama and whatnot. And at first I was like, really? But then as I've like allowed and got into it, I see why. Because I'm able to see more clearly all these funny dynamics. Like one series was set in the 50s, and you see how like literally, like the way the show is created, like literally everybody's living a secret life because they're too afraid to be themselves. I mean, it's not really funny, but when you look and just kind of see how like literally everybody has a secret life because
Right.
they're all like, like everyone's you see how everyone's trying to control everybody else, like I think this, you need to think this, otherwise, like you're bad. Um and so like, you just see how like everyone literally has like this secret life that they really want to be living.
Right.
um but in public everyone's like buttoned up and like, oh yeah, I'm just like you, I'm just so anyways, all that to see, like I can see why I've been brought back into some of these like stories, because I'm seeing all of the like nonsensicalness from a new lens. I'm just like, oh, it's like it's kind of embedded everywhere, and it really doesn't make any sense because like you see how people are suffering from the hiding, like how everyone wants to be themselves, wants to live a certain life, but because everybody's hiding, it's like this very pretend world.
Hmm.
Um, so that's just what I've been seeing. I just wanted to add that since based on what you had said before. Um, One thing I just wanted to clarify, this was helpful for me to know if you've been appreciating what Ramona's been offering, is that um, I wasn't clear on this, Ramona, before the show, and now I am. The paperback is available now. So the title of the book is in the description that you see for this video. And then, um, yeah, the title is first. And then underneath that is a description that includes a link to where you can find out more about Ramona, and the link to the Amazon page for the book where you could order the paperback if you'd like. And then the Kindle version comes out on April 26th, correct?
Yes, April 26th. You can
Awesome.
pre-order it now. It's only 99 cents just for the launch,
Mhm.
and then it'll go to whatever the final price will be.
Cool. Yeah, so it's just exciting for me to learn that, if you wanted it on paperback, you could, click uh, and have it shipped to you. And then on that note, I'm just curious, what was the publishing process like for you? Just anything you want to share? Because, I know a lot of people sometimes marinate about a book, but then there's all the questions and how's it going to work. So just anything you might like to just share about your experience with actually publishing something?
Absolutely. I was naive to the entire process. I thought that writing the book would be the hardest part, or the biggest part. And as it turned out, it wasn't the hardest part or the biggest part. It was very, very minute part of it, actually. So yeah, so especially the way, I mean, if I had slogged over it for 4 years, then that would be different. But the way it came out of me was just so easy. And then the editing process turned out to be very easy. A friend just offered to do it and did a fantastic job with it. And another friend, offered to do the forward. And so just about everything about the book itself just fell together beautifully and perfectly and easily. The publishing process was a different story, and it definitely. And you were talking about the cover at the very beginning, and the cover was actually the hardest part, as it turned out in the process. But what I thought at the beginning of the publishing process, that getting it formatted to go into Kindle, turned out to be just something that I was just getting a no on. So I hired somebody else. Selfpublishing.com is a company that does that sort of thing. And so they got the inside of the book formatted and loaded up into Kindle and into the paperback both. It takes special software. It takes special, I don't know what it takes because I tried it over and over again. So that part, I'm really glad that I had somebody else do that. And I highly recommend, if it's your first time, to get someone to do that part of it. And then getting the cover, it takes a graphic designer with special skills and special software and whatnot. We were kind of went back and forth a lot on the cover. I have a book launch team, and they helped me make the final decisions on the covers and stuff. And so we looked at a lot of different options and went back and forth. But I'm really happy with the way the cover turned out. I'll show it to you again in case somebody missed the beginning. There's the cover.
Yeah.
And I think it turned out really beautiful, very evocative, very kind of eye-catching.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's it. If anybody has any questions specifically about the publishing, like how it worked, any details or anything, go ahead and ask. But that's the kind of the overview. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's really, yeah, I think that's so helpful to hear because I know a lot of people, um, just based on the people I know, probably have a book sitting in them. And yeah, it's all these questions like, what would be helpful to know ahead of time? And so because you went the self-publishing route, it's like, yeah, you just, like, thank you for sharing that. Like, yeah, there was definitely things that are just better to have someone else who knows how to do these things, just take that part over.
Yeah, yeah, because nobody really wants to learn a whole new, really complicated software just for one
Yeah.
thing. I mean, most people don't. Some people might, but I didn't want to. I wanted somebody else to do it, so I paid them, and
Yeah.
I'm happy with the route I took.
Yeah. Yeah, those are really great details. Just so again, if someone watching or listening knows that they have something sitting within them, it's like, some helpful things that might be good to know ahead of time. Just like, oh yeah, like, there's certain experts that it might be helpful just to have, on your radar that, you could bring into the process, if you wanted to. So
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, so I guess what's coming to me, I feel like we've covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. One thing that's kind of remaining is just maybe anything that's just really stood out to you in this entire process, from deciding you were going to do it to writing it to publishing it to now announcing it and talking about it. Like, has there been any major through line of this experience that you're just like, for you, first and foremost, that you've been like, wow, this is really what this has shown me, but then also maybe something you could pass on to us?
I'm not sure I understood all that question, but I think what you're saying is there any overarching lesson that I've learned from this? Is
Yeah,
that what you're?
exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. I have learned that being authentically me, being visible, being publicly me
Mhm.
is, for me anyway, the most fearless thing I've ever done. There may be something more fearless, less fearful, whatever that goes, more fearless, more courageous, more brave, more um, willing to just stand and be. But it's, to me, it's the ultimate. And so it, by just writing it, and I've read some interesting quotes just since I became an author. I never saw myself as an author, and now that I see myself as an author, I've been attracting like author quotes and things. And one of the ones that really struck me was, write the book. Write the book not because you want to sell it, not because you even want to publish it necessarily, but because putting you into words on paper changes you. Changes the way you think about yourself. It changes about the way you see the world. It changes the way you interact with the world. It's extremely valuable process to go through of self-discovery and self-expression that's vital to your complete development as a human. That was basically what I'm paraphrasing tremendously, and I don't remember who the quote was from, but that was, and I believe it was a man. I think that was his point. And I have to say, I agree. Writing the book changed me, and getting the book published, sticking with it, because then, writing it was easy, and then publishing it didn't turn out to be easy. It wasn't, and I had a little trouble finding my path of least resistance, which I'm always looking for. And then I found it, and I'm so glad that I stuck with it. So writing it was one thing, disseminating it to a bunch of people is another thing, and do both. I would say do both. They will both change you. They've both changed me for the better, for the more powerful, for the more happy, for the more satisfied, for the more grounded, for the more relaxed. And so I strongly recommend it to anybody who's even remotely thinking of doing it. And even anyone who's not thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
Let's say that. How about
Yeah.
everybody? Everybody go write a book. Write a book about something that's really, really important to you. Write it.
Mm.
It will change you.
Yeah. Well, I remember I did that as a kid. I would, I would just, kind of like on the 8.5 by 11 white paper, I would just, color certain things and I would staple it together and, like at the edge of the paper, I'd like staple it along. So it was kind of like a book you could flip through. And I remember, yeah, it was for like the fun of telling a story, It's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a story. Let's see what comes out of me.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So all that to say, just again, just affirming what you're saying, like, yeah, if there's something you're passionate about, like, yeah, it could be fun to see what it's like to express that, and yeah, and this is one way you can express it. So um, yeah, that's yeah, I feel like we covered everything I was really curious about. Anything else you'd want the viewers or replay viewers to know before we kind of tie things up?
Hmm. I'm gonna quote Nike. Just do it. Just do it.
Nice.
Just do it. You know you want to.
No.
Oh, I do have one other thing. When I had decided I was going to need some help publishing it, the first place I looked was Upwork, to just hire,
Right.
a person to show me somebody who already has the software and knows how to do this. This is going to be easy. And so I posted on Upwork as a job. And then I ended up speaking to a very nice lady that worked for the selfpublishing.com. And in the conversation, she was just delightful. I think it was the day before Thanksgiving or something. It was like I didn't even know if I was going to get to speak to anybody. When I got to speak to her, she was very supportive and encouraging. And as we were talking, and I said that I thought I was going to go this other route, but I wanted to know what they had to offer and how much it would cost and all that, and you see how it would feel. And during that conversation, she asked me a question that really impacted on me. So now I'm going to ask it to your audience. I'm going to ask it to you and to your audience. And that is, do you want to make an impact on the world? And if you do, there's a way to do it. You can play small and you can do lots of things lots of different ways, and you can ease yourself into it. But if you want to make a big impact on the world, if you have something to say, step up and say it. Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, thank you for your yeah, your direct sharing. Yeah, it's so yeah, it's that's what it really gets to be. Again, no matter what it looks like and how much you ease yourself into it, it really is just about like choosing yourself, right? I mean, like I have something to say and here's what it is.
Yes. And don't attach to who's going to love what you had to say.
Yeah.
Like really stay true to yourself and saying it the way you feel it, the way you perceive it, the way you think it, the way you say it.
Yeah.
And yes, you want to meet people where they are and help people and all that, but as you stay the course in being yourself, there is so much benefit, so much
Mm,
personal benefit to you and to the world.
mm,
The world doesn't need another book that just kind of, glosses over things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like that real life lived experience when it's shared authentically. Again, it's just like Uh, I've been doing that. I've been sharing different writings publicly that are just really about my real life stories that I've never actually really spoken aloud. And yeah, people have been thanking me. They've been like basically saying it's really nice to get to see more inside been like to be you, and in these, previous chapters of what it was like to be you. Because again, there's so many things that so many of us can relate to that, we were taught to keep a secret or hide, or,
Yeah.
we were taught was shameful. Like, so many of us can relate to some of these big overarching themes. And when, yeah, as I've been, and, I've just been feeling inspired to say, this is what it was like for me. And yeah, people are saying thank you. They're like, thank you
Yeah.
for letting me see inside your journey inside this culture,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And, how you found your way with different things. Cause again, it's like, I think I feel like it speaks to your title. It's like when we open up and share what it was like for us to navigate certain things that might have felt like big things, like it does for me. So I'm sure it does for other people. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, I feel less alone
Yes,
in what I've
exactly.
lived. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Beautifully said. Thank you.
yeah. Well, thank you for letting us see inside of you, both in this broadcast, this recording, and then also in your book. Uh, yeah, I'm excited, especially now that I know that the paperback is available already. Uh, I already knew I was going to read it the second I saw it. I was just like, okay, yes.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Bo. I've had just a really lovely time visiting with you, as always, and a wonderful time visiting with your listeners. And looking forward to anybody wants to send in any questions after, if you've hearing this later and you want to ask me any questions, I'm totally available by Facebook Messenger. Just send me a message.
Yeah, so again, the title, the first line you see of the description of this video is the title of the book, and then underneath that is, a description that includes, and there's the book again one more time. I highly recommend. So the link to the Amazon page for the book is also in the description. It's first I list Ramona's website, and then underneath that I put the Amazon page, and you can get an even better view of the artwork. And that really touched me too when I first saw the artwork. I was just like, man, this is a really cool title. I mean, cover, along with the title.
Thank you.
Uh, and so again, yeah, you can find the Amazon page if you just want to look at it, if you want to just like read more of the ins and outs, because I read, there's lots of like highlights which I read. So I know you can get to all of that from the Amazon page. So yeah, all the important stuff is in the description. And then after I conclude this broadcast, I'll go back in and I'll update it to tag Ramona, because I can't tag people beforehand, but I can tag them afterwards. So I'll tag Ramona. So if you do want to find her on Facebook, and like she said, send her a message on Messenger, you can easily find her. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you again, Ramona. It's been a
Thank
delight,
you,
and
Bo.
thank you for sharing you with us.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. Until next time, everyone, much love, and blessed be the journey.